So the fact that you're here means that you realize that you need to make a change in your life. But if you're anything like me, you've probably wondered for a long time, why can't I just make the change that I need to make? When we think about life change, we've got this idea in our minds and our hearts that we should just be able to do it. And a lot of us have been kind of fooling ourselves for years thinking, one day I'm just going to do it. We subscribe to this myth of just do it. And then we try to just do it and we fail. And then we wonder, why can't I just do it? You have wondered why you can't just do it. The people around you have wondered why you can't just do it. Let me start this off by saying to you that the whole idea that you can just do it is a myth, okay? And the reason just do it is a myth is because you do not have access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to your willpower. You see, the just do it myth is based on the idea that we have willpower and that if we would just tap into our willpower, we can make any kind of change that we desire to make. Yes, that is true to a certain extent. The problem is that you do not have access to your willpower 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You don't get to choose when you have access to it. The willpower is elusive. Your access to it, it comes and goes. There are these windows when all of a sudden you've got access to your willpower, and then those windows close. It's not something that you can control. Now, the will is the source of what the Bible calls self-control, and self-control is listed as one of the fruit of the Holy Spirit. I believe that the Holy Spirit gives us access to our own willpower so that we can make decisions and stick to them. You see, one of the problems is that we try to make major decisions for our lives during seasons in which we do not have access to our willpower. And so you're actually not qualified to make that decision yet. You try to make that decision and you say, you know what, I'm not going to do that anymore. But then you find yourself doing that again and you don't know why. You can't seem to stop doing that. It's because you tried to make the decision in a moment in which you did not have access to your willpower. Now, there's good news. The good news is this process is designed to jumpstart your willpower. I believe your willpower is kind of like an old lawnmower. You can get it going if you could put the right fuel in it. Maybe if the fuel was old, you need to pour the old fuel out and put new fuel in. And those old school lawnmowers where you just had to crank it and turn it, and all of a sudden, brrr, the motor would turn on. Your willpower is like that. You can jumpstart your willpower. You can get it going. The fact that you don't have 24-hour access to your willpower does not mean that you are powerless when it comes to your willpower. There are really three elements. All you need to jumpstart your willpower is three things, and this whole process is designed to provide you with those three things. The first thing you need to jumpstart your willpower is desperation. Now, desperation, honestly, I cannot provide you with desperation, but I believe that desperation is a decision. Desperation is simply the decision to face the urgency of the change that you need to make. You see, if you're not desperate about the change that you need to make, you're not going to make it. I mean, fact of the matter is, if it's not an urgent change that needs to be made, it's probably not a change that's going to be made. And oftentimes, the change in our hearts and minds is not urgent simply because we haven't faced the reality of how desperate the situation is. Oftentimes, the desperation in our mind and in our heart concerning our understanding of our situation has not caught up with the actual reality of the desperation of the situation itself. And so the first component is desperation. Desperation is when you come to the realization that this change is not only necessary, but I got to make it now. And that desperation is what drives you to your knees. That desperation is what drives you to the place where you begin to seek the face of God. It also drives you to a place where you're willing to be honest, where you're willing to be transparent, where you might even be willing to talk about it with other people at a level that you weren't willing to talk about it before. But the first piece of the puzzle is desperation. Now, the opposite of desperation is apathy. And apathy is, the word apathy comes from which is a negation in the Greek, and pathos, which is the word passion. It is negative passion, no passion. That's what apathy is. Apathy is you just don't have any passion about it. And it's desperation without desperation, your desire to change is apathetic, meaning in your heart and mind, you're like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, but in its time, it'll happen. You kind of just assume that change is going to float down out of the sky. And if it doesn't happen, and I hear, God used as the excuse for this level, I saw a documentary and there was a guy in the hospital and he was morbidly obese. He was over 1,000 pounds and he was bedridden, of course. And they had him on this special diet in the hospital that was designed to help him lose the weight that he needed to lose so that he wouldn't die. But he kept ordering food secretly, and he was paying nurses and so forth to secretly bring him food. And somebody asked him, aren't you afraid that you're going to die? And he said, hey, my life's in God's hands. If he says I die, I die. If he says I live, I live. Well, yes and no. The whole idea of your life being in God's hands is true, but only to the extent that concerns things that are out of your control. Okay? Your life is in God's hands, but you can commit suicide. It's like jumping off a mountain or jumping off a building and saying, if I die, then it must have been God's will for me to die. No, it wasn't God's will for you to die. You took your life in your own hands. And so that level of apathy, sometimes we got to break out of it before we're ready for change. So that's the first thing you need is desperation. But the second thing you need is encouragement. And this is the key. The reason you need encouragement is because the devil has beat you up so much and so badly and so severely about your inability to change. He has convinced you that you're incapable, that you're incompetent, that something's wrong with you, that you're just undisciplined and you're lazy and all of these things. And you probably have very little confidence in your ability to make or sustain a major change in your life. And so you're going to need some encouragement. And the problem is desperation without encouragement desperation without encouragement, it takes you to this place of despair. Desperation without encouragement is despair. And despair is the place where you're fully aware that you desperately need to make a change, but yet you are completely incapable of making it. And so you need encouragement. The will is stimulated not just by desperation, but by encouragement. And so when desperation and encouragement come together, the fruit is resolve. And resolve is that moment where something rises up on the inside of you and you say, I am not only must do this, but I can do this. We are going to do this. I'm going to make this change. I'm going to figure out what I need to do to make this change. And so you need encouragement. You need a stream of encouragement. And there's so many ways to get encouragement. One of the primary ways to get encouragement is to fill your heart and mind with the testimonies of those who have made the change that you desire to make. The testimonies are out there. You are not unique in a sense. That is, you're not the first person to need to make the change that you're desiring to make. There have been people who have gone before you, a great cloud of witnesses who have gone through what you are going through and have beat it and have come out on the other side. So part of it is you need to fill your mind and heart. And I'm going to provide you with several stories along the way of individuals who have made major life changes. And we're going to break down those changes and talk about what happened and what was different. Here's the crazy thing. Every testimony you find of individuals who have made the kind of changes that you desire to make, any major change, any major life change, you're looking at an individual who tried 10,000 times and failed. And that's me. I tried 10,000 times. I tried to diet. I started diets 100 times. And every time I started it lasted anywhere from 1 day, sometimes, actually a lot of times less than 1 day, to maybe a few weeks. I might get 3 weeks out and feel like I'm doing it this time, 3 weeks, and then I'd fall off the wagon after 3 weeks. And so anybody who's made a major life change is someone who's failed 1,000 times. And you need to hear those testimonies because they encourage you. Because if you've tried and failed for years and years on end, you've been beat up by the devil and you need some encouragement. The third thing that you need is information. This is so key. Part of the reason why you're discouraged is because you've got some bad information. You've got some bad information about what it takes to make the change that you need to make. And, part of that for me was I had it in my mind and heart that in order to lose the kind of weight that I needed to lose, it was like I can't eat at all. I've got to just kind of, starve myself and eat, lettuce and just a couple of cherry tomatoes a day. And it's like I just had it in my mind and heart that you just can't eat. You just got to learn how to go without food. And when I actually got the right kind of information and I started doing research, before I ever, years before I ever made the change, I started to research what it would take to make the change. So I looked into several different diets and looked into several different protocols. And when I found the one that made sense to me, and this is key, you got to find what makes sense to you. Everybody will tell you what the right change, what the right program is for you. You got to find the one that makes sense to you. But the other side of it is, when you find the one that makes sense to you, you've got to have the resolve to see it through and not let yourself off the hook and fudge it all the time. But we'll get to that in a future teaching. Here's the key. When you get the right information, what you're doing is you're preparing your mind for the change, so that when your willpower kicks in, you've already got the plan. Everything is in place. You've got the plan. You don't know when your willpower is going to kick in. But if you begin to cry out to the Lord in desperation, if you begin to personally seek the encouragement that you need, and if you begin to fill your mind and heart with the right kind of information that you need, at a certain point in the process, your willpower is going to kick in. And that willpower, when your willpower kicks in, now all of a sudden, the Holy Spirit has given you the emotional and mental energy that you need to make the change that you desperately desire. Now, that moment happened for me on March 14th at 7:20 in the morning when I got a call from a friend of mine. He said that he had a dream in which I died. And all of a sudden, at that moment, something clicked on the inside of me. And suddenly, I don't know why, but it was just the moment that the Holy Spirit touched my heart and gave me access to my willpower. It's like all of a sudden, my willpower jump-started in that moment. And I had access to all of the mental and emotional energy that I needed in that moment to make the change. And here's the key. The moment my willpower kicked in, I started immediately. I took immediate action. Every morning I would have this tall cup of coffee and I would fill it with French vanilla creamer, so it's full of sugar. And I would have a cinnamon raisin bagel with butter, honey, and cream cheese. My bagel was in the toaster and my coffee was in hand. I was just stirring in all of the French vanilla creamer. And that would start my day. That would be just enough sugar to get me going in the morning, and then later in the morning, I'd probably have a croissant or a donut or something. And then at lunchtime, I'd have a burrito and some ice cream or something. And it would just start me, it would propel me throughout the day. The moment my willpower kicked in, I had just had one little sip of my coffee. I get the call, 7:20 a.m. You're gonna die. Boom, my willpower kicks in. I immediately poured that coffee out in the sink, grabbed the bagel out of the toaster and threw it in the garbage. Went straight to the doctor and had all my blood drawn, had my blood pressure and all of the tests done. Went straight from there to the gym to work out. Went to the grocery store and started to gather food. I started the ketogenic diet immediately. I could not have started immediately if I didn't have the right information in my head, but the information was already there. And once the desperation is there, the encouragement is there, and the information is there, at the collision point between those three resources, your willpower kicks in. And this is the key. When your willpower kicks in, whatever moment it is, you must take immediate action, because this is so important. How many times did I talk myself out of the change? How many times did my willpower kick in on a Thursday afternoon, and then I would think to myself, I'm ready to make the change. I'm going to start Monday morning. There's the problem right there. You just talked yourself right out of the change that you intend to make. I'm going to start Monday morning. No, don't start Monday morning. The window's going to close before Monday morning. Every time I did that, it never failed to fail. It always fails when you procrastinate and when you delay. But when you act upon your willpower with immediate action, now you're off to the start that you need to create a sustainable and long-term change for your life. Now, this is what I'm saying to you. This process here and all of the sessions of this course are designed to feed you encouragement and information and to help you come to grips. There are exercises that are designed to help you come to grips with your desperation. So what I want to be in this process for you is your guide. You are the hero of this story. This is not about my change. This is about your change. This is not about my wisdom. This is about your wisdom. In actuality, all of the wisdom is already on the inside of you. All of the insight is on the inside of you, but you lack the encouragement. And sometimes because you don't have enough encouragement, you lack the desperation because you cannot tolerate desperation without encouragement. It equals despair, and you don't want despair. And I'm going to give you some information, but I'm going to give you the information about the mechanics and the dynamics of change, of making the decision, of getting to that place, preparing your heart and mind and preparing your world to make the change that you so desperately desire to make. And in the process, you're going to seek the information that you need about your specific change. If you need to lose weight, you're going to research that and find out the how and make a decision about what plan you're going to go with the moment your willpower kicks in. You're not going to try to make your willpower kick in. You're not going to beat yourself up about not having willpower. You're simply going to wait. And I know that seems so counterintuitive. It seems like I just need a good swift kick in the pants. No, you don't. You need to feed yourself encouragement, information, and connect with your desperation, and you need to wait. You need to prepare your world. You need to prepare your mind. You need to prepare your heart. And I believe along the way, if you just keep going through these sessions and you keep doing the work, it's important. If you don't do the work, if you don't write in your workbook, if you don't answer the questions, if you don't go through the exercises, what are you doing? You're just listening. You're just kind of letting it pass over you. You're not actually doing, you got to do the work. If you do the work, I believe that your willpower at a certain point in this program, whenever it is, it's going to kick in. And once your willpower kicks in, you must take immediate action. And we're going to encourage you along the way, and we're going to see your life change. This program may not only change your life, but it just might save your life. It might just save your life. And this might just be the most important course that you've ever taken before in your life. I'm still in the middle of my life change. I've still got another 18 pounds to go, 18 to 25 pounds to go. Once I get down to 180, I'm going to see what that feels and looks like. And if I need to go down to 175, I'll go to that as well. But my initial goal was 180, and I'm 198. I started at 241. So I'm on this journey with you. We're in this thing together, but we got to keep pressing. And we're going to do this. We're going to do this. All right? Let's go.